Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants. Welcome back, everybody, to the podcast for Fort Worth Lodge number 148. This is Rhit Moore, past master and current secretary of Fort Worth 148.
This is Grant Gates, Master Mason, Fort Worth 148.
Gabriel Jagush, Master Mason, Fort Worth 148.
Good to be back, guys.
Oh, and Grant, you're a Tyler, aren't you?
Yeah, I do that too.
Okay, there you go. Just in case you forgot.
So we're about to hit 2,000 downloads, so this has been awesome. This has grown much faster than I ever thought it would.
Yeah, shout out to our listeners in like Iceland and Brazil and South Africa. That's really cool.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah. Also, we have more listeners in London, England, than we do in Oklahoma. So I thought that was kind of fun.
Well, Oklahoma will get podcasts here in a couple of years, guys. They'll catch up.
I would say careful, but they're just not listening. I don't know.
Oh, our poor Okie brethren.
Well, guys, thank you everybody for sharing and at least downloading it. Hopefully you're listening to it and enjoying it. So we do appreciate all the support there.
Yeah, the last post for episode 6, it reached over 10,000 people and was shared like close to 50 times. So the support's been awesome.
Yeah, and if I know this is really cliched to say on a podcast, but if you listen to us on iTunes, please rate us and review us. It helps. I
didn't even think about that. Yeah. So true.
So I had no thoughts of getting a review.
These guys suck.
We need to go review our own podcast, don't we?
Signed, Grumpy Past Master. Let's talk about news, guys.
Let's do it.
So, in extremely local news, I got C certified. What's up? So, now I can teach stuff.
What?
Anyway, moving on from that, because that's not really news.
That's awesome, though.
In Texas, Iowa Park Masonic Lodge 713 cleaned up Highland Cemetery. They took 18 brothers and family members and armed with rakes and weed whackers, and they helped take care of the cemetery. So, that was great stuff. On the national stage, on Saturday, so that's the 24th or the 25th? Anyway, this past Saturday, the Grand Lodge of Ohio authorized a one-day class. The last time they did one was a couple years ago, I think like 3 years ago or something like that. The brothers raised in the class are subject to a bunch of interesting conditions, right? So because they were raised in a day, we're talking from 0 to 60. They have 90 days to attend a stated or called lodge meeting after being raised. If they don't, they get suspended. If they get suspended for that, they can be unsuspended by returning a memorized proficiency. So that one's kind of interesting. I like that. That brings brings a question of how do you keep your own master's obligation, specifically regarding communication, in order to teach somebody a proficiency to memorize, to give back, to become unsuspended? That's a question I'll let the Ohio brethren wonder about, but I may just
they probably have that literature in the law, know, that if they're, because that's kind of like after an EA passed their year, it says in our law specifically that they can attend lodge to learn the work.
To learn the work. Yeah, that makes sense. So so if they don't do that in 90 days, they get suspended and they have to return a proficiency in order to do that. During the 90-day period, they cannot be solicited by any appendant body. So if you are a brother in Ohio, in the Ohio Shrine or the Ohio Scottish Rite, what do they call that? Because it's whatever jurisdiction they're in, but then they also have like state-by-state stuff. Anyway, I'm not a Scottish Rite Mason, so I don't know. But if you are a brother in one of those appendant bodies and you solicit one of those guys before their 90 days, you are committing a Masonic offense in the state of Ohio, and you can get expelled. So,
yeah. It's somewhat similar here because you have to turn in your proficiency, and you have 90 days to do it. But after your proficiency's done, you're fair game.
Yeah. Well, and so I thought this was interesting because it's not just like one of those. They used to call it like the Sidewalk to Shrine program. And so that was all three Blue Lodge degrees, then the terminal degrees for Scottish Rite, then Shrine, because back when they called it Sidewalk to Shrine was when they required you to be a 32nd degree or a KT. But anyway, so if they've met the visitation requirement, they have to attend a table lodge, or they don't have to, but they are strongly encouraged to attend a table lodge in January in order to be declared proficient. Any Mason that does the memorized proficiency as a bonus, so not suspended or anything like that, but just does it anyway. If he does it anyway, he gets a challenge coin from the Grand Master. So during the one-day class on Saturday, across the state of Ohio, they raised 2,700 Masons, and each of the brothers that attended they had their own lights, they had their own senior deacon for the obligation and the grips and words and stuff like that. So there is an individual component to that. So each guy has his own Bible and all that for the degrees. So I thought that was interesting. But 2,700 all in one day, that's pretty impressive. And one of the brothers that attended said that he said that it was some of the best ritual work he's ever seen. So,
where was this at again?
This was in Ohio.
Yeah, because Ohio holds. I think they hold the record for the most raised in a single day. It's like a little over 8,000 or something. I heard
that on. I heard something like that on Winding Stairs a few weeks ago when Christopher Hodap was on.
Yeah, they were talking about it on Roundtable.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what that number was, but I think it was 8,000 or 9,000, somewhere around there.
They get creative with it. We're going to have to make that a podcast soon to talk about all that.
Anybody here looking for a new job, by the way? Because in news abroad, the UGLE, the United Grand Lodge of England, is looking for a communications executive. It's a 12-month fixed-term contract, and the stated purpose is to facilitate the efficient flow of information and communications of UGLE, including Supreme Grand Chapter, through web and traditional channels, which covers a ton of responsibilities. So the hours are Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, in an open plan office, so think cubicle farm, with a competitive salary and terms. The CVs must have a cover letter. The closing date for applications is the 14th of April, so check out freemasonrytoday.com for more info. If you want to go live across the pond and work for UGLE and get a paycheck from UGLE, maybe think about it. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah. So back when I was single, I probably would have applied for that. Just to go somewhere for a year.
That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, that would be fun.
From France, here we go, on Friday, March 24th. The Grand Master of the Grand Orient of France was assaulted by a random woman. She repeatedly called him a Jew and hit him with a hammer and then ran off. So fortunately, his wounds are only superficial, so he's going to be okay. But that was kind of out of left field.
I'm telling you.
When your government demonizes a group, the stuff we talked in our previous newscast or podcast about in the news section, they've had their government, investigating them and going through all that very publicly, and sometimes it can lead to violence.
Yeah, well, I mean, just culturally, I think in Europe, Freemasonry tends to be viewed as much more of a shadowy organization, that kind of thing. So there's not nearly as positive of a view of it in general as it is in the United States. So a lot of people in England and in France and in Germany, the continental Europe, don't disclose the fact that they're Masons. Or at least not like we do, with the bumper stickers and rings and everything.
Exactly, yeah, because we've had a guy visit, and he's like, our building doesn't even have a square and compass on it, where ours says Masonic Temple right out on the corner.
Yeah. The 4-foot tall square and compass.
You got it. They don't do that stuff, from what I understand anyway.
So let's get to questions then. So I have a question from Brother Mark McCarran. So he's actually from our lodge. If somebody from the quote-unquote outside wanted to donate to Masonic Lodge, how would they go about it? And is it tax deductible? I know the answer to the tax deduction part, but I wanted to ask just anyway.
Oh, it ties right into our podcast. Well, they would just contact the lodge or a Grand Lodge, because there are certain things that are tax deductible. Like if you donate to the Masonic Library and Temple Museum, that is our building, it's 100. Well, I don't know what it is as far as tax deductible. I'm not going to act like I'm a tax man, but it is tax deductible.
Now, if you donate to an individual lodge, that's not tax deductible, right?
No, it is not tax deductible. You have to really get a good CPA to figure all that out, because there is ways to maneuver that, but it's above most people's pay grade. So, no, it's not tax deductible. Right. A lot of people think dues and things like that are, but it is not.
Bad idea. Don't claim it, guys.
Yeah.
So this is a question from Brother Omar Galeazzi. I have several brothers that I have met in my travels ask me if I am from a 4-letter or a 3-letter lodge. Why do they ask this? And what is the difference, if any? Now, I think a lot of people will jump to, AF and AM versus F and AM. But usually when they ask, if somebody asks you if you are from a 3-letter or a 4-letter lodge, they're not talking about state-to-state mainstream Blue Lodge differences. They are asking you covertly if you are a Prince Hall Mason or not. So,
that is too.
I think generally speaking, I'm having trouble thinking of it, but I think every Prince Hall Grand Lodge, and I might be wrong, but they're all 3-letter. So they refer to themselves as a 3-letter Grand Lodge system. So it's kind of like I don't want to say dog whistle because that has connotations, but it's a subtle way of asking, hey, are you in Prince Hall or not? So,
yeah, because every Prince Hall brother I've met, I've got that question. Pretty much anyways, I've got that question from them. Are you 3-letter or 4-letter? And that's exactly what they're asking. Because, there is AF and AM, F and AM, which there are subtle differences, but kind of have melted away now. So,
yeah.
If you're interested in
barring
Google.
seating arrangements, pretty much, and a couple of the officer position names. So this is
fortunately, every 3-letter Mason, so to speak, I guess I've ever met has been just fantastically friendly. I know it's a question, but here in Texas, now that we have visitation, I think we may stop hearing that question so much out there.
Yeah. Well, I've from my experiences, the quote unquote 3-letter guys tend to be a lot friendlier towards 4-letter guys than 4-letter guys towards 3-letter guys, just generally speaking. So,
no, and I think when you meet guys like that, they're typically our age, and those issues that older Masons have are gone away in that younger generation. So, they don't have any issues with it. But, those things go away in time.
Yeah. But I was at a dinner, and I was having a conversation, and I said, yeah, and I was talking to so-and-so, and it turns out he's a Prince Hall Mason, which I thought was really cool, because, he explained some of the traditions, and he said, oh, Prince Hall, huh? And that was it. He didn't say anything for the rest of that section of the conversation. I was kind of taken aback. It was one of my first encounters with that sort of thing, and I was just, whoa, okay, So,
well, they were clandestine for us for so long, and they just recently we had the mutual recognition. So, for some of those older guys, that kind of changed. You know what I mean? It's just hard for them to swallow.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have anything to do with race or anything like that. It just has to do with the legitimacy of their craft, to where they're like, no, we're the originals, kind of thing. So it's weird, but
I'd say
whatever.
For some of the guys, there's definitely a racial component there, but it's one of those things that it being Texas, that is one of the things that you are going to be hard pressed to get totally away from.
Oh, and it's apparent. It's in our country. I mean, look at the media today. It's an issue. If you think racism's gone, you're hiding under a rock.
Oh, yeah.
So, and as much as we'd love to think our craft is perfect, it has its flaws. It's got its bad apples, but they are slowly but surely coming around or being pushed out.
Right on.
So,
there we go.
So, third question I had was just a general question that I wanted to toss out. Goat jokes, yes or no?
For me, that's a big no-no.
Yeah.
I agree.
We talked about that in the last podcast. That's if you're making goat jokes, that's for me and you that have already been through the deal to giggle at him.
Yeah.
And that's not. There's other ways to make him feel less nervous. Yeah.
And we did touch on that, but I saw an interesting post on Reddit that was it was a guy that I can't remember if he had just gotten his EA or he was about to go get his EA, but the title of his post was like, "I'm going to go ride the goat." And I'm just going, man, this is not the language I want somebody who has not even had the initiation to be using, So that's
exactly
people making jokes when they shouldn't be making jokes. So,
and I'm all for the memes online and making the jokes when there's no candidate there, a degree going on, but it's not something you joke with a candidate at any time before his degree. Like at some point there's going to be some trivial hazing moment, because that's a solemn event.
Yep.
And it should be treated as such.
Were you at my investigation?
I don't think I did. I was on your team, but okay. I know I vetted you.
So the one of the questions I asked during my investigation, I think, I want to say that Greg and Will and maybe Robert, and there was a fourth person there. Can't remember. Anyway, I asked, "Is there a goat involved?" Because somebody had already started cracking goat jokes to me, and they said, "No, there's no damn goat."
Yeah. But, you hear it all the time.
So, what are we talking about today, Rhit?
All right, let's get into the meat of this thing. So, we're talking about Freemasonry. Are we a charity or an educational organization? And what kind of inspired this topic is, it's easy to see in our country how divided everybody is. You're one side or the other. Seems like there's no middle ground left. And I think it's infected our craft a little bit to where I see the majority of people either saying we're a charity or that we're an educational organization, and we should be doing one or the other and not necessarily involved in the other. So if you're a charity, we should be focusing mainly on charity work. If we're an educational organization, you believe that, we should be doing predominantly educational type stuff. And it just really got me to thinking, how has this happened? How have we got to the point to where we're trying to paint our craft into a corner and nail it down as one thing or another?
That's interesting. So I think part of it is the perception guys have when they're coming into the craft about what they've seen with the craft, and they come in and what their expectation is. So if they've been introduced to the craft and talked about the educational portions of it, or maybe went to a Masonic school or were in the DMLA, may see it as educational.
Or read Dan Brown books.
And once they come in, we're an educational group. And then vice versa, folks that are introduced through the Scottish Rite Hospital, what are they? They're coming in to a charitable organization. That's where their mind is. right?
Well, and the shrine's the biggest advertisement for Freemasonry there is, because they're out on the street corners, they're doing pancakes, and it's all for charity. So we're immediately tied into charitable acts.
Yeah.
Because
as far as the shrine goes, though, you would not believe the amount of people that I have talked to in person that have no idea that the shrine is connected to Masonry.
Exactly.
The shrine is that's one of our appendant bodies. You have to be a Master Mason to join the shrine. And the response I inevitably get is, "Wait, Shriners are Masons?" I said, "Yep, every single one of them."
So in that moment, when you're telling them that, they tie the two together. Oh, well, in their mind, they're thinking Masons do similar things that Shriners do.
Right.
Yeah.
They're confusing the specialty for the general, I guess.
I met a guy out while I was working, and I noticed a shrine hat, and I said, "Oh, are you a Mason?" He goes, "No, that was my dad's." And he did not know his dad was a Mason. He knew his dad was a Shriner.
Yeah.
And that goes back to that era of don't talk about anything.
Yep.
Don't tell him what you're doing. Don't tell him where you're going. Don't
the
tell him
cigar box under the bed.
Yeah.
I'll whip you if you touch that box. Yeah.
No, and that's kind of the role the appendant body plays, because I've heard the Scottish Rite referred to as the College of Freemasonry, to where it's a little more educational driven, where I know the shrine is more social and very charitable in nature in what they do. I mean, they have the circus. I mean, they're huge. They have hospitals all over the country that they raise money for. So, that's kind of where the appendant bodies come in. But, when we've got on this road of trying to fix our membership and increase our numbers to pay for buildings or whatever it may be, to feel like we're in those glory days again, or that the craft's not dying. I'm not for sure what motivates it all. But when we start trying to paint it into a corner and say, hey, this is the one way we're going to fix it, I think we're kind of going down the wrong path a little bit. But it's, in the same token, it's easy to see why someone would think, for instance, we're an educational organization. We have symbols you have to contemplate on. You have to philosophize on. You have to read about, research.
Right.
Do you think it's do you think it is all has to do with the way we talk to candidates about Freemasonry when they're coming in? So if you're in a position where you're trying to increase your membership, you're trying to bring as many guys as fast as you can, do you think maybe we've done it to ourselves, trying to sell Masonry rather than letting Masons find us?
There's no doubt that we've done some things wrong for sure, because I saw a post on one of the Facebook pages today for Masonry that this guy was like, okay, I'm ready to join. How do I do it? He said specifically, I know it's going to take a lot of dedication and hard work. So these guys are coming in expecting to invest a lot of themselves into this. And, for them not to, coming in that way, they're going to naturally think that it's educational based.
Or at the very least, they're going to have a predisposition towards that, which maybe there's nothing wrong with it, but yeah, it's definitely gearing if you if you end up only accepting petitions from that kind of brother, you're going to end up with a certain type of lodge, which there's nothing wrong with having a lodge that's really heavily geared towards charity or towards education, but it always helps to have a little bit of diversity in terms of mindsets,
Yeah, and that's the whole key for me, because it is about that diversity. Some lodges are loaded up with one type or the other, and that is perfectly fine. That's why we have 800 plus lodges in Texas, because they all have their own personality. So you go to a little small town to where, it's full of people that like an education paper every once in a while, but more like to get out into their community and do charitable acts, and it really grows their lodge doing that. why wouldn't they be more charitable based lodge than an educational based lodge?
Right. And that's
It
one of the
works
things
for
that I do
them.
kind of like is when you go into a lodge and you visit them and you can kind of get a feel for, hey, what's the general compass here? Like what are brothers here geared towards? I mean, I know that not every brother in this particular lodge is going to be geared towards subject X, but what's the feel of it? So are they ritual based, or are they educational or charitable? Whatever, right? So
Yeah.
and that is kind of cool. There's a little spot for everybody.
And that's what you tell the candidate when you're talking to them. You don't tell them that we're the oldest fraternity and that we give $2 million a day in charity, supposedly.
$3 million a day.
Yeah, there you go. There's some astronomical number that we all
Don't let Grand Lodge catch you undervaluing us.
When you are talking to the candidate, which most of the time he should be talking to you, you're selling your lodge and what you do. And if all you can tell them is that George Washington was a Mason a long time ago and that we give that much money away a day, your lodge isn't doing much, so that's your moment to say, hey, we do the pancake breakfast for the law enforcement, or this for raising money for scholarships, or we expect education presentations out of you. You know what I mean?
We expect you to attend education presentations, and you're telling them, hey, we do an education every third Thursday, and our stated meetings are every second Monday, and so you're telling them what you're doing. Not only, I guess the only way to describe it is you're selling what your lodge is into, but people tend to attract people that like to do the same stuff. Right. So if you really enjoy getting out there and painting playgrounds, you're going to find a group of guys that likes to go out and do charitable work like that. If you like to put on charity events and raise cash funds, you're going to probably work your way into a lodge that likes to do that. It's the way of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things that really got me running down this rabbit hole that we talked about Masonic charity on a past podcast, to where, the guys that say we're a charity and we need to be doing majority of charitable acts, they fall back on the faith, hope, and charity that were taught in the entered apprentice degree, which, if you look up charity in the back, like we talked about before, it's talking about love and forgivingness and that kind of stuff. It's not talking about helping out the needy. So you got the charity guys saying, hey, faith, hope, charity. See, this extends beyond the grave. This is the greatest of all three. We need to be doing more charity. And then you have the educational guys going, well, that doesn't mean what you think it means.
Right.
And they're kind of in an intellectual battle there. And if you just dig a little deeper into our ritual work, because sure, charity doesn't mean helping the needy, but what does relief mean? Brotherly love, relief, and truth. That's same thing as, some of our principal tenets. So, when we're talking about charity, we're talking about relief in Masonry.
Yeah.
So in a sense, when you say, no, that charity doesn't mean that, well, of course, in Masonic terms, it means love and forgiveness. But relief is talking about helping out the needy, and restoring peace to their troubled minds. And it's funny how we get hung up on those little issues when Masonry has such a broad scope that when we have that aha moment that's like, this is what I love about Masonry, and this is you start getting these blinders. It's like, this is going to fix it all. Everybody needs to do this and experience this, when it's all about your individual journey.
Well, and thank goodness there are so many different types in our fraternity. I mean, we can just, if we take it down from the fraternity to our lodge, we have guys that, they really aren't into doing degree work, but they love to come watch, and they love to participate in all kinds of different events with us. So, you really come down to, hey, the thinkers are going to want to think together, and the doers are going to want to do together. And that's kind of how I see it is, guys, it's okay if your lodge is a little bit different, but you can't narrow down the whole craft to effectively your lodge. You're narrowing your scope of what you can find in the craft. You can do anything in Masonry. You can find, if you want to be in a motorcycle group, you can do that. If you want to do charity, do it.
Oh, that reminds me. I need to figure out more details on Web Lodge's motorcycle ride. That's for later, but yeah. now that you remind me, but yeah.
Well,
one of the things you mentioned about there's brothers that they don't necessarily enjoy participating in ritual work, but they enjoy sitting on the sidelines and watching it. I think that's great. It's one of those awesome. I mean, hey, it's cheap entertainment, and can be very rewarding just to sit there and absorb all of this stuff. Because, we've talked about it before, but every time you do ritual or you see ritual, you start peeling back the layers and you discover stuff. You learn things. So just sitting there and being mindful, emptying your mind and just listening, maybe even close your eyes and just absorb, and you start to discover more and more stuff. And it's one of the reasons why I've actually really enjoyed sitting at the secretary's desk or in the chaplain's chair for degrees where I'm doing lectures, because until I do the lecture, I'm in stasis. I'm not doing anything other than listening and absorbing ritual, and I love that.
Well, case in point, last night I went to a Master Mason's degree, and Brother Don Webb gave the long form lecture, and it talked about the beehive. And I was just that. I had my eyes closed. I was just listening to him, trying to stay focused, because it's so hard to stay focused all throughout that lecture and absorb it. Lecture. But he talked about the beehive, and right at the very end, something hit me. I was like, oh, that goes perfect with the podcast. I got to mention that.
I wish I had my monitor with me.
So let me just read this out to you. It says, "And he that will so demean himself as not to be endeavoring to add to the common stock of knowledge or understanding may be deemed a drone in the hive of nature, a useless member of society, and unworthy of our protection as a Mason."
That's
so
heavy.
It's big time heavy, and it's all about.
It's very caustic, actually. I like it because it's one of those things of, hey, if you're going to be worthless, we're not going to bother with you, and that's kind of mean, but I like it because it's very emphatic.
Well, and there's our charge for education. We as Masons have to educate ourselves and add to the common stock of society. We have to add to the knowledge base. And I was like, oh, that shows how we need to educate ourselves, amongst many other symbols. I mean, the whole fellowcraft degree is about learning, so it's easy to see where we get hung up on being an educational organization. But if you look through all this is a manual of how to make a good man better. And if you're telling me that the only way to make a good man better is through education, you've missed the mark. You've missed the point. If you're telling me that they can only get better doing charitable work, again, you've missed the mark. I mean, why can't those intertwine? Why can't they work together and support each other? Look back in history. There were Masons that started the Scottish Rite Hospital and the Shrine Hospital. Those were Masons where that idea came out of and created it. They raised the money for it. I very seriously doubt they put out many esoteric books, but they did great things for the craft. Jump over to the other side. Where would we be without Manly Hall or Albert Pike?
Right.
They didn't create any hospitals. They may have had a little hand in charity here and there, but for the most part, they contributed on an educational basis, and that's just fine. They dedicated their whole life to that. That's a beautiful thing.
Now that you mentioned the monitor, I don't my monitor is physically in my bedroom right now, so I didn't want to leave the microphone for this. So I pulled up Duncan's on my phone because technology. And because I was thinking of the anchor and the arc when you brought up the beehive in terms of education. And so the counterpoint towards the charitable side of the beehive and contributing towards, education and knowledge and stuff is the anchor and the arc. The anchor and the arc are emblems of a well-grounded hope and a well-spent life. They are emblematical of that divine arc which safely bears us over this tempestuous sea of trouble, and that anchor which shall safely moor us in a peaceful harbor, where the wicked cease from troubling and the weary shall find rest. And to me, that is very emblematical of this idea of charity, whether we interpret it in the sense of giving or if we interpret it more in the sense of the 1 Corinthians faith, hope, and love approach.
Yeah, I mean, there are many symbols that direct us to help out. I mean, there's a presentation that happens in the entered apprentice degree. One of the very first lessons we're taught is to help people in distress.
Yes. We can't go into too much detail about that one, but
exactly. Yeah. It is inherent in our degree. And relief talks about, listening to people, sympathizing with them, and restoring peace to their troubled mind.
Yeah. Love them.
Exactly. It's how we form our friendships and establish our connections is what it says. So it specifically directs us to do what we call charitable acts today. And it's not necessarily giving away money. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things you can do besides that, but it's both of them. Education and charity is all throughout for us to do.
The most valuable thing you can give isn't money, it's time. If you want to look at it like that, taking the time to actually listen to somebody, and figure out what you can do to help, that's probably the most expensive thing you could give anybody, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, free time. Your free time. Once your regular vocation is done, your free time seems to become much more expensive, doesn't it?
Well, if you value your money more than you're in the wrong fraternity. Go join the Elks Club. Go join the Rotary. That's where those things will help you with your money. Freemasonry is all about maximizing your time on this earth. I mean, there's no doubt there's so many things in there that teach us time is our most valuable asset and spend it wisely.
I believe the hourglass teaches us about that.
Hourglass, the scythe, I mean, chronos, the time, those are all
Rhit?
They're old, and
I think we lost you for a second
there. Yeah.
Am I back?
Yes.
You're back now.
I heard the last thing that I think I heard from you was Chronos.
Oh man, I was waxing philosophy. No, I was just saying that the whole master's degree is about spending your time wisely so you can look back on a well-spent life. So if you're valuing money more than your time, this is going to be a headache for you in this fraternity.
Yeah.
It's something the fraternity works hard to teach us early before you get, before you even get to your master's degree, you're learning about the 24-inch gauge. There you go. The charitable lesson and the educational lesson are in every degree. So, it makes sense for us to be narrowed down a little bit there, but you definitely can't define it as one or the other. I just don't think there's a way you can do it.
And so here's the thing. Sitting there last night, listening to the Beehive, it talks about a third aspect. And there are so many aspects to Masonry, but we're talking about it being a charity or an educational organization, but there are a lot of people out there that think they come here for the social aspect alone. That's it. Guys don't go out once we're married. We don't have a lot of chances to go out and meet other good guys to hang out with. And that's what Masonry is. It's a hotbed of good guys to sit around the campfire with.
Yeah.
And the Beehive talks about just that this man was formed for social and active life. Again, it gives us a directive to be a social organization as well.
That's very true. Because we need that. We need that input in our life. There was something on NPR that came up recently that was talking about how men need to have that social interaction in order to be healthy mentally.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where the idea is created, out of, is that moment you sit down and have a cigar, or you go on that road trip, down to Grand Lodge or whatever it may be, where you're hanging out with that Mason who becomes your friend on top of that. Because whether we like it or not, there's a difference between the brother and the guy that you've actually got to know, and he's become somebody that's a friend to you now. You call to go fishing or whatever and actually just hang out with.
Yeah,
so there's
the article that I'm thinking of was that it was on NPR. If anybody wants to look up the title of the article, it's "Middle-Aged Men Need More Friends." And I would also extend this now, not just to middle-aged men, but I think that's too narrow of a group to think of it, because in this day and age, millennial guys are feeling lost. Guys that are in their later years have, that's the time when you start to lose partners and you lose friends. There's a lot of, for whatever reasons, there are a lot of different kinds of isolation in every stage of life, whether it's because you're starting out in life, the young guys that have just come out in college and don't really know anybody in the new town where you've moved, or if you're middle-aged and you're busy with a family, your wife wants to see you every day, your kids wants to see you every day, and you need some sort of carved out block where you can say, hey, I'm going to go have a good time. Or if you are in your advanced years and people that were there for you are no longer there for you. Everybody needs some sort of social interaction to fight against that. What do you call? I just used it. Against that social need that suddenly popped up for you.
Yeah.
Isolation. That's the word. Isolation.
And this is becoming more and more talked about. Like there's another article I saw, Gabe, that I was searching for, and it's on the Huffington Post that loneliness. They're saying loneliness can kill is the headline. So it's something that is a true social need in our society, and it's hard to find. Like you said, even if you're in your hometown, people move away. So it can be hard to find good guys to hang out with, and our fraternity gives us that.
And if I was going to make an argument for if we had to pick one of the three of what's most important to our craft, it would be the social aspect. Every single time we step foot in that lodge room, for the first half hour to hour and a half, we're socializing. That's what we sit around that big wood table and talk about nonsense, and have some laughs, eat some meals, whatever, and we socialize. So I would dare say the vast majority of our time that we spend together is socializing more than it is doing Masonic work.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people would classify that I feel like there's a very specific type of socializing that comes when you have a whole bunch of brothers around a table. Mm-hmm. It's different from any other kind of socializing you're going to have. And I think a lot of people, myself included, would classify that as a form of Masonic work.
No. I mean, the perfect example is that night after Grand Lodge.
Oh, yeah.
We were socializing, but what were we talking about? Masonry,
Oh, absolutely.
And either the history of it or what we're doing in lodge and what's working. What we
should be doing.
Exactly. We were getting ideas from everybody. It was a great night, and it was all circled around a social event. Mm-hmm. You're making good men better. I know from experience, one of the best ways to make that happen is just hanging around guys that hold you accountable. Masons are not. You hang around good people, you're going to tend to be a good person. You hang around thugs, you're going to tend to be a thug. You know, that's just the nature of it.
Right.
So that, you know, that's the biggest key to it, is to make sure every man that comes through that you initiate is going to be that kind of guy that holds you accountable, not through telling you what you need to do, but acting on the square. You know, this guy walks the walk and he inspires you thusly, you know.
I like that.
Yeah. There's another, you know, and going back towards that social, and I know that we just talked about it, but I've been looking up things on my phone just because we keep hitting on stuff that I wasn't thinking about earlier.
Yes.
The social isolation aspect for guys, that it's so important to have somebody that can reach out and say, hey, brother, you doing okay? Because in the U.S., you know, this is specific to suicide, right? Men die by suicide 3.5 times more often than women. And this touches back to guys that are middle-aged or getting up in their age. The suicide rates by age, the highest group of suicide is in adults between 45 to 64 years of age, and then the second highest rate is in those who are 85 or older. And so you see, what you generally see is a lot of older guys that feel isolated, don't have people reaching out to them, and don't have that network of support. And that can, not in every case, but that can greatly exacerbate the issues that lead to somebody to make that choice.
I couldn't agree more. Perfect example is me educating myself because I'm excited to share it with you guys. You know, when I come to Lodge with something exciting to talk about that I've learned from somewhere else about the degrees, and I share it with you and y'all get excited, it makes me excited.
Right. There's that motivation to go engage with people and share joy.
You got it.
Life gets tough. There's, you know, you're going to have unhappy times. You're going to have stressful times. You're going to have times when, we've talked about this, that now all of us are, for whatever reason, we're all going, oh man, my schedule is nuts, right?
Yes.
But you find little pieces of time to pick things up, you know, like a little pack rat of knowledge. And you come and you say, show everybody, look at what I found, right?
You got it.
It's about spending time with each other. And so, you know, we've talked about, hey, there's a social aspect to Masonry and a charitable aspect and an educational aspect. And when Rhit first posed me this question, he sent it to me in a text message when he had the idea for the podcast. I was driving and Siri reads it to me and I say out loud, well, neither. That was my immediate answer.
Yeah.
And as I was driving, I was thinking, well, what we really are, you know, we have the social aspect. We have all these aspects of Masonry that you can get involved in and really find your niche. And I thought, well, really, all that does is define us as a fraternity. And you have two just Webster definitions of fraternity: a group of people sharing a common profession or interest, and the second definition, the state or feeling of friendship and mutual support within a group. So, what word could better define what we're doing than fraternity? At least in my mind, when I think about it, it's, hey, you get together, you find something you enjoy doing together, and you go after it. And that's what Masonry really represents to me, and fraternity defines it dead on to me. What we do.
There's the different needs that everybody finds, and this is something that I found on the VermontLodgeOfResearch.com website. It's a little article, it's 2 pages long, by Brother Mason Pratt, who's a past master. I wasn't able to find what lodge he was a past master of, but it's a little 2-page list called The Different Types of Freemasons. And in it, he divides us by brand and by behavior. And this really ties into what you've been talking about, Grant, where everybody's got something different, right? It's not just education. It's not just charity. It's not just the social aspect, although by and far it does tend to be mostly the social aspect, I think. Mm-hmm. But he has 6 brands, right? So he's got historian, and that's local history, general Masonic history, or current events related to Masonry, or individual histories, right? So presidents, Grand Lodge leaders, famous Masons in general, that kind of thing. You've got ritualists. So he divides the ritualists into parrot, detail, and purist. So the parrot would be the words but not the meaning. Somebody's dead set on that. The detail would be somebody who's a perfectionist with the degree, all the footwork, all the words said correctly. And then the purist, which is, I don't know if he means this person is also a perfectionist, but he has in parentheses, seeing that the degree message is conveyed correctly, which to me is a separate category from the purist, because you can correctly convey the meaning of the degree without perfect ritual. Here comes the thunder, the lightning bolt of the district instructor. But
right, they're going to get the lesson whether you pivot correctly or not. Right. Yeah.
The third category he describes is the philosopher, those that seek hidden knowledge. Rhit, I'm looking at you. Masonic law. I guess, or maybe a Masonic law expert. He didn't have that specified, but maybe somebody who's involved in parliamentary law, how things operate, the government, right? How the lodge is governed, or how Grand Lodge is governed, and then maybe the legislative law, how we go forwards, right? So parliamentary operations, government is the present state of things, and then legislative would be the future state of things. Then the next category he's got for brand is symbolism, somebody who solves the puzzle of pictures. What if I'm looking at this painting, what am I seeing really? Then he's got the collector, which is stamps,
that's
books,
Gabe,
pins,
by the
knickknacks.
way. Gabe, that's you.
The puzzle guy?
Yeah, no, that's definitely you.
So our brands are historian, ritualist, philosopher, Masonic law, symbolism, and collector. And he's got different types of behavior that he classified differently from the brand, right? So brand is historian, ritualist, philosopher, Masonic law, symbolism, collector, and behavior is supernova, socialite, comedian, lifestyle, controller, mentor / student, pious, and exhibitionist, and academic. So supernova / blazing star is something that he describes as somebody who starts out really fast, gets super excited, and then burns out. That's a lot of Masons.
Yes.
Across the nation, we have a 5. This is pretty much common to every Grand Lodge in the United States. You will see a 5 to 10% retention rate of active members. Now, dues-paying members is a different story. You will have way more dues-paying members, but in terms of guys who come to lodge every month, that's going to be 5 to 10% of your members, of the guys that you raise. A 10% retention rate at best. That's crazy to think about.
That's actually not that bad.
It's not horrible.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's terrible.
I look back at when we had 2,100 members during that era when we were coming up to it, but pretty much at our peak. And if you look in the sign-in book year after year, it's about 10 to 15% at best. So they'd have like 200 members there, or 180. Some would be 150. That room would be full, and we think, oh man, glory days. But they were still getting the same percentage of active members as we are today. Yes.
Right. So the next category of behavior that he has, so we had supernova, now he talks about socialite. Now that's not social Masons. That's the way that he defines that is somebody who's a politician. So a socialite in the active navigatorial sort of sense. I don't want to say manipulative because not all social politics are manipulation, but that's another category that he describes. The third category he talks about is comedian. In parentheses, he says humor to a fault. So we definitely got a lot of those guys. Then lifestyle. I think lifestyle. I think that's what he talks about when we say socially oriented Masons. I think that's what he's going for when he says lifestyle in that bullet point. And then the fifth category he's got is controller/dictator, somebody who needs perfection. So that's going to be, to me that goes hand in hand with ritualist and Masonic law. So maybe your brand might be Masonic law, and your behavior is controller, which means so everything has to be done according to procedure. Or it could be ritualist and controller. All the degree has to be done perfectly.
No.
Mentor/student that's pretty self-explanatory. That behavior indicates the need to teach and or the need to learn. And then the next category he talks about is the pious behavior. So somebody who's serious and reverent. A lot of these guys are looking for something that they don't find in their regular life, and I feel like that goes in hand with degree work. So something pious, reverent, serious. They're going to clash with the comedians, so to speak. And then you have the exhibitionist/admiral/Christmas tree. And that, you see the guys that have all of the lapel pins and everything like that. And that's not a bad thing. The way he describes them is that the exhibition, he has exhibitionist/admiral/Christmas tree. And then in parentheses, he had proud/rewarding/accomplished. So he says, the exhibitionist wants to show everything off. The admiral wants to give awards to people. And then the Christmas tree is just somebody who's just done so much that he just kind of wants to show it off. And I feel like that's maybe accomplished. Feeling accomplished versus feeling proud is a slightly different sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And then the last category we've got academic. And he wrote there, umbrella needs more of a focus. So, but if you guys want to look more of this up, all you have to do is Google all you have to do is Google Vermont Lodge of Research, the different types of Freemasons, Mason Pratt. And that will take you to this little 2-page thing. It's really interesting to look at. It helps us. We always put each other in boxes, and then maybe that's not productive, but it helps us to understand, hey, like what we were talking about the lodges earlier. What is this guy geared towards? Mason, what is this lodge geared towards? What is this guy geared towards? Because not everybody's going to be, I like ritual all the time. We're not going to talk about your daughter's birthday party. Right? No, you're never going to find a guy like that. Or at least one would hope.
Yeah.
So everybody has the social aspect in them. Everybody has the ritual aspect. Everybody has the X, Y, Z aspects to them. But they're going to be geared towards something, inevitably.
Well, and I think really my whole point of this discussion was, to really highlight the fact that Masonic journeys, your journey through Masonry, is an internal one. And when you're trying to tell me how we're going to fix a problem as a group, if we start doing this as a group, you're not doing a personal journey anymore. You're trying to do something to add to my journey. Through some program you're going to create. The whole idea in my mind is that you walk the walk. If you're an educational guy and you think that's going to fix Masonry, do education and do it well. If you think charity is going to fix it, do charity and do it well. If you're the social guy, wherever you fall into that, the history buff, do it. But don't tell everybody else they need to be doing more of it as well. Inspire them to.
That's the good way to do that. Instead of telling, showing, fill them, going back to, aha, look what I found. Fill them with enthusiasm, yeah.
You got it. And, in our degree work, we have saying that as Masons we show then tell.
Yeah.
You know, as far as our footwork and everything, we show whatever we're doing, then we tell. It's the same thing in our actions. You show them how to do it. And if they want to be told, you can tell them. Otherwise, enjoy Masonry for what you enjoy it for, and stop letting other people's ideas of Masonry pollute yours and rob you of your enjoyment. I see it all the time. I mean, on Facebook, there's guys that are very intelligent Masons and believe highly in the educational, and they start pointing fingers at other people at what's wrong with the craft. And it's like, man, we're not doing anybody any favors here. We're building
log in your own eye.
You got it. We're building a wall in between comes us and them.
Yeah.
You know, put that olive branch out. If you're the education guy and that's what's going to save us, go do a charity project and see how you feel. Tell me that doesn't make you a better man. That's what we're here to do. If it falls under the scope of making good men better, it fits into Masonry in one form or fashion.
And that's something when you say this about people trying to fit their mindset of Masonry onto somebody else, or losing your personal journey to others that would subject you to that. One of the things that, going back all the way to the beginning of this discussion that we were having about talking to your prospects and how prospects tend to come into Masonry with an idea of what it is that maybe it's not necessarily what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's when, you might try and influence a brother that it's hard not to try and influence a brother onto a certain path or not. What gets not dangerous, I don't know. I feel like using the word dangerous is an alarmist sort of action. But it's playing with fire to a certain extent was when you're talking to your prospects and trying to tell them about Masonry. You have to be careful with how you talk about Masonry and what you think Masonry, or how you explain Masonry to them. Because we already have guys coming in with some pretty interesting conceptions of what Masonry might be. They might be right, they might be wrong, they might just be a different flavor of Masonry. Yeah. But it's like a kid. It's before you are initiated, and even all the way through your first years as a master, you are very malleable. You are like a child's mind. So when you are out there in the lobby or at the dinner table of the stated meeting that's open to everybody, and you're talking to the prospect and you're saying, oh, yes, to me, Masonry is about A, B, and C, but not really X, Y, and Z, but definitely A, B, and C. They're going to pick up on that, and they're going to start running with that. And maybe not consciously, but they're going to have that little snippet of, oh, this is what Masonry is, that you put there. Even maybe you didn't even try to.
You're absolutely right. I think that's one of the biggest problems is that we try to sell Masonry to this guy that just came to us to join. It's like he's already sold. He may have some questions we have to answer, but for the most part, let him do his thing. He's already sold. You don't have to tell him anything, and trust that you're going to inspire him through those degrees somewhere along the way to figure out what Masonry is for him. Yeah. You'll retain him that way. If he goes through and hears something about Moses going through the Red Sea, and it's like, oh, that inspired a thought in his head that sends him down a rabbit trail like none other. Let that happen.
Yeah.
Don't discourage it, because it kind of goes back to the point of building those walls. When we start pointing fingers at each other, you might discourage somebody that would build our next shrine hospital. You might discourage somebody that would write the next morals and dogma.
Or put together the best degree team ever.
You got it. Encourage each other to do what we love Masonry. And if somebody says that this is all about charity and we're going to fix it with charity, more power to you, brother. Let it happen. And let it motivate you to show him that education can grow a lodge as well.
Yeah.
Get in a friendly competition to where you stay in contact and say, hey, look at my lodge. You know, we're pretty much education based over here and we're growing. And compare notes, see what works.
Yeah.
Work together. We're brothers, you know. Let's not divide each other. We got a vast amount of things wrong with our fraternity of little nuance, but we're getting the major part right if we stop building walls in between each other. I mean, the
right
148.
Yeah.
I mean, 148 has inspired me so much because I originally, with my cousin and I, talked about making it a TO lodge and it being all about esoteric stuff and all about this. And with the group I have now, the diverse group that there's now, you see what a lodge can be when you have all of those types of people, but they're all trying to get better. It's magical. You know, so you got to let those guys figure out what they want to do.
We really do have a good mix too. I mean, you know, and we, like you said, we tend to inspire each other to go out and do something we maybe haven't done before. You know, when you see someone get so pumped up about putting on a charitable event, even if that's not necessarily your thing, you want to jump up and go help him because he is so pumped up. Or if you see guys putting so much into putting together an educational presentation, man, you want to listen and you want to try to get something out of it because they have worked so hard on that for you. So when you have that mix, man, you start smoothing out those rough edges a little bit and you know, really getting yourself becoming well-rounded. It's nice to have a mix in the lodge.
You got it. You create a culture to where guys feel like they can express themselves and not feel judged, you know, because you're not going to catch me giving a history paper. I love hearing them, but I don't necessarily like researching history stuff. But I'm certainly not going to discourage the guy that does. Bring it on.
I think I just heard the sound of Brad Billings sitting in his Texas Lodge of Research apron, shedding a single tear at you saying that.
I know. Well, that's what, because I had set out to join that a long time ago, and they were asking for history of the lodge, and I was like, you know, I'm going to wait.
Yeah, I just got the first issue of the communication where they have the minutes and the papers that were presented there, and I'm looking at, because eventually I'd like to become a full member and all that and get the cool apron.
I'm with you.
I'm reading some of these papers and I'm going, oh man, I'm never going to be able to match up to these guys.
That's really and truly what happened. I actually read what it took and I was like, I'm not ready, more than it was about history.
So,
phenomenal. Just completely well done, and it was way above my pay grade at that moment, and still is today. So,
yeah,
kudos to those guys that have done it. That's for sure.
Bo will get it done fast. That's right up his alley, though.
Oh yeah,
you know,
there you go.
Yeah.
I've been having a lot of fun too with reading the Grand College of Rights stuff. It's very similar to Texas Lodge of Research, where instead of collecting historical papers and academic papers in general, Grand College of Rights collects ritual, right? So the ritual that they sent us this year was the American Masonic Federation, and it contains their entered apprentice degree, it contains their fellowcraft degree, their master's degree, and their Mark master's degree. Mm-hmm. And I'm reading through that and I'm going, wow, like this is really similar, but also phenomenally different because some of the phrasing is just totally off. And for example, instead of calling him worshipful master, he's right worshipful master, and the wardens are worshipful warden, that kind of thing.
That's
so
crazy.
Lots of little differences. It was, it's just a clandestine Scottish Rite Masonry that was started just by some guy. They eventually got taken down in a court case for being part of a scam and that kind of thing. But the ritual survived. And so as a ritual geek, I love reading through that kind of stuff. So there's all sorts of stuff you can do.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that, that's the whole point of this discussion, is to encourage each other. Do what you love about Masonry first, because that's going to encourage me more. I mean, the law, for instance, I did not even crack that law book open until I ran into a brother that knew it inside and out. It's like, you know what? I need to learn it like he knows it. Of course, I still don't, but I've read that law book a few times, and have dove into it deeply quite a bit, all because of that brother's knowledge of it.
That's actually what I'm doing now. I'm trying to really read about 50 pages a week, because I figure that'll get me through it eventually. Time permitting. Again, time is the most valuable thing that you have. But I really do want to know it. And Rhit, same reason. I ran into somebody who knew it really well. And I don't like being the guy with the least amount of knowledge in any conversation. So that's kind of what got me started.
That's how we hold each other accountable. You know what I mean? It's not a demeaning type of thing. It's an encouragement, because you want to be a part of it. So we perpetuate that growth of knowledge. I mean, before I learned the work and was looking for inspiration, Brother Sam said learning the memory work was the best education he ever received in his life. It's like, you know what? I'm going to take his advice and dive into that. So you're going to get inspiration all throughout, and learning that memory work has made me a better man by light years on many different levels. And that's what it's all about. Yeah. Good men getting better.
I've been, and it can be really profoundly moving too. So I'm in the process of learning the master's lecture, and there's moments where I just have to sit there and go, wow, that's incredible. So,
Gabe, are you going to learn the long form for us? Because I love hearing the long form lecture.
My goal is to get the A certificate and then go learn the long form. So
why don't you just learn the long form so we can hear you give it? I think that would be
apparently that kind of messes you up when they're doing the examination. I was talking to a brother that only does long form pretty much. And he said that when he went back to go get recertified for his A certificate, he was sitting there going, wait, no, also no. Okay, I got it. So he had to sit there, because they'll point at you and they'll say, okay, start from this passage. And so,
oh, no kidding?
Yeah, so when you organize it in your head, it's all because I organize things into paragraphs and little scenes, things like that. I visualize. The Fellowcraft lecture is great for actually physically visualizing the lecture, when you kind of like mentally walk through the lecture in your head. And so I've got it organized into little compartments and paragraphs, and each paragraph is like a separate room, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if I was going to learn the long form, I would have to start adding rooms and redoing the scenery, so to speak. And there's nothing wrong with that, but when it comes to getting quizzed on it, that might actually be kind of tough. So
that's a really interesting way to think. We're gonna talk about that, not on the podcast, at some point. I like that. I don't think like that at all. My brain works completely different. So we need to dive into that.
Like we said, guys, there's different kinds of Masons for everybody.
You got it.
Yeah, we'll have a cigar over that one.
Yeah, actually, that sounds great.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a good idea.
Well, I don't know that I could add to our discussion anymore, unless you guys got anything else.
No, I'm good. Let's talk about events.
Let's do it.
All right. So, local events. Not all of these are local, but they are within the state of Texas. So, we're going to start with blood drives. April 1st, Stephenville Lodge is holding a blood drive from 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. in their lodge room. Breakfast is from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. The address is 244 South Columbia Street in Stephenville, Texas, 76401. Also April 1st, East Trinity Lodge 157 in Rockwall is holding a blood drive from 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. You can find them at 104 South Goliad Street, Rockwall 75087. April 8th, Longview Lodge 404 in Longview is hosting a combination blood drive / fish fry, in case you really wanted to saturate your blood with delicious, delicious fried fish. The blood drive is from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and the fish fry is from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. They're in the same spot. The blood drive is for the Gift of Life program, and the fish fry is for the Longview Masonic Library and Museum. So, Tarrant County and nearby events. March 30th. That's the day that you will be listening to this podcast. Burleson 649 is having 3 EA degrees. The first one is tonight, March 30th. Please show up if you can. If you're listening to this on your morning drive and you have a free evening, go for it. Fortunately, you have a little bit of warning for the next ones. The tonight's is at 6 p.m. for the light meal and 7 p.m. for the actual degree. Saturday, April 1st, they'll be doing the double EA degree. So they'll be doing one tonight and then 2 on Saturday. Breakfast is at 8 a.m. Degrees are at 9 a.m. So please come and welcome some brothers to the fraternity. On April 8th, Lufkin Lodge 669 is putting on a scholarship golf tournament. The scholarship is taking place at Niches Pine de Boli. Registration is at 8 a.m. The start is at 9 a.m. The cost for a 4-person team is $300, and the cost for a corporate team is $500. There's going to be multiple contests. I'm messing this all up tonight. There's going to be multiple contests, and there's going to be several levels of sponsorship available. So for more details, please check out their Facebook page. That's Lufkin Lodge 669 AF and AM on Facebook. On April 8th, Webb Lodge 1454 is putting on an outdoor Master Mason's degree. Western attire is encouraged, and bringing your own chair and your own apron is required. I'm going to say that again. Bring your own chair, bring your own apron. There's not going to be enough aprons for everybody, guys. So bring some. The Hella Shrine Knights of Mecca degree team is conferring the degree, and the location is 32900 US 281 in Lipan, Texas, 76462, and that's about 10 miles south of I-20 on the east side of US 281. In the case of bad weather, the degree will be relocated to Harmony Lodge 592 in Morgan Mill. Lunch is at 11:30 a.m., and the degree itself is at 1 p.m. Bring $15 for lunch. It's a suggested donation, so bring it anyway. Suggestions are, so help them out.
It'll be worth it, yeah. And I talked to Mark, who owns the land down there, and they needed ATVs to get people down there.
Were they able to get a hold of one?
Well, what he thinks he's going to do, because he hadn't heard from anybody, which I'm sure he would still take the help if you have one, but he's going to take his old tractor and put his trailer on it with a couple bales of hay and kind of hay ride them down there.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I like that idea.
That's what he said. He goes, I think it'll add to because they're wanting you to wear Western attire.
Yeah.
And I think that'll go with it. So that'll be pretty cool.
Hayride and a master's degree. I like this.
You got it.
That's cool.
And bring your hat if you don't have a canopy, because the audience wear hats.
Oh, the audience can wear hats?
It was so sunny that cowboy hat would be very good to keep you from getting sunburnt.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to bring mine then, because that'll be brutal if we're out in the direct sun.
You got it.
Yeah. So, but anyway, if you do have an ATV that you can lend people, a multi-passenger one, get in touch anyway, because I'm sure the hayride is going to be awesome, but they need all the help they can get, because, this is a big production. And so... Yeah,
and when they say loan it, they mean, because usually those are guys' babies. Nobody can touch it behind the driver's seat. You drive it, if you want to.
Yeah, and they're not looking to take possession of it or anything like that.
Exactly.
So, but if you do know of an ATV that is available for it, even if you're the one driving it, or if you just want to attend, hit them up at weblodge1454@gmail.com. So that's WEBB Lodge1454@gmail.com, or 817-253-0964. Your contact is going to be their senior warden, Mark Myers. So April 9th, Hella Shrine in Garland. That's April 9th. Hella Shrine in Garland is holding a crawfish bowl fundraiser. The event is from noon to 5, and there are going to be $20 tickets. You have to reserve them in advance because that gets really busy. I think there's going to be beer and soda at the event, but you can BYOB if you want. In addition to the flyer that I saw said that beer was covered by the $20 ticket. To reserve tickets, you're going to want to call John Crodell at, and I probably said that wrong, 214-762-6077, or the Hella Shrine Temple at 972-240-6521. Hella Shrine is located at 2121 Rowlett Road in Garland, Texas. So, crawfish boil, if I'm not too wiped out and heat stroked by the master's degree on the 8th, I might actually go to that. That sounds really good.
Be good. It'd be a long drive, but it'd be good.
Yeah. Well, for a crawfish boil, I don't know. It'd be worth it.
Rowlett's not that bad, Rhit. Come on, man.
Yeah,
well, from West Texas, it's a long drive.
You're the guy that drives a gazillion miles a week, though, so that's...
Yeah.
About
something
that.
I just thought about that outdoor Webb's putting on. The meal that's being served is being prepared by Lee Cooner, who was the barbecue cook-off champ at the Family Day at the retirement center.
Oh, cool.
So it's worth $15 at least.
Yes. So yeah, that'll be some good food.
You got it. He's bona fide. He's out of Grapevine Lodge, and he can cook some mean barbecue.
Yeah. When is Easter again? That's what, 18th?
It's after a full moon or something like that. I can't remember.
I have a feeling that I'll still have to be eating potato salad and like side stuff on the Web Lodge degree. Can't believe I did that to myself.
Oh man.
So anyway, yeah. So the 16th. Yeah. So I'll be eating lots of potato salad. Man.
There you go.
Oh man.
I'll give you my potato salad.
Yeah.
Are you going to get mad if I rub it in? Be like, all right, Gabe, give me the meat you're supposed to have, and I'm going to give you some extra coleslaw, my friend. Yeah.
Only if you like physically rub it in by like taking the meat and smearing it on yourself. Just be like, look, I have so much excess barbecue, I can do this. Anyway,
I'm going to wring the juice out.
Just literally bathe in barbecue meat. So anyway, April 13th. is an event that I'm very excited for because that's when Handley Lodge 1140 has their stated meeting. And guess what they have? They've got the traveling gavel and the mega gavel. So, if you're not familiar with the rules, you can go to 64th.org and look up the rules for the traveling gavel. The short version of it is bring 7 brothers or more, and you're going to want or more, because I've heard of a group that is trying to get organized together, and they're trying to bring 20 brothers. So,
goodness gravy.
Yeah, so let Handley Lodge know in advance that you're going to show up so that they know to cook enough food, and make sure to bring money for a donation because they work real hard on this. And the food was incredible. I think it's their Eastern Star chapter that cooks for them, and it was fantastic. And so their stated meeting is at 7:30 p.m. I believe dinner is at 6:30.
Correct.
If they still have the traveling gavel and the mega gavel, which I'm sure they do, then bring 7 or more brothers and claim it for it. And then after you claim it, email the 64th District with an update. And let them know who's got the traveling gavel so that everybody knows.
They got a form for it. It's real easy to do, and they get it updated.
Yeah, and so local temple events, we are at 1100 Henderson Street in Fort Worth. We have a note here. There is going to be a 5-minute presentation on the next stated meeting for Fort Worth Lodge. So one of our EAs is going to be giving a 5-minute presentation. That's something that we're having them do. So that'll be Monday the 10th. So second Monday.
I do want to note that it's schedule permitting.
Schedule permitting. Okay.
He's planning on being there. Has told me he has something ready. Quick 5-minute presentation, which is something, like you said, we're doing as part of our Big Brother program. So,
yeah. So if you want to encourage a brother's, now that we've been talking about academic and ritual and charity and all this, if you want to encourage a brother's academic exploits and listen to his presentation, please come on by to our stated meetings. The day after that, on Tuesday, that is when the Texas Council is putting on the Royal Master and Select Master degrees. Please come to that too. That'll be cool if you are a Royal and Select Master. So this is going to be in the 3rd floor Red Room. I'm going to be one of those candidates. So come on by. I would appreciate that. That would be cool. And as always, Fort Worth 148 meets on the second Monday of every month, starting dinner at 6 p.m. for a 7 p.m. stated meeting at 1100 Henderson Street in Fort Worth, Texas.
Come on by. We'll show you around the temple.
Yeah. So the quote I wanted to end us out on tonight is by Maya Angelou, and it is time for parents to teach young people early on that in diversity there is beauty and there is strength. I thought that was particularly fitting given our subject tonight.
You got it. That's exactly right. Not only the kind of diversity that she's referring to, but diversity in our mindsets. It takes a village to raise a kid, and it takes a village to build a good fraternity.
Yeah, and it takes a whole lodge to raise a Mason. So.
You got it. That is exactly right. It takes a village to raise a Mason.
So, guys, if you want to reach us, we're available at www.fortworth148.org, at Fort Worth Lodge 148 on Facebook, and info148 at fortworth148.org. Tonight's episode was recorded in front of, well, not in front of, but to a live digital audience.
You always mess that up when you get Will back on. He got it right.
No, he's so much.
We should just
he's got that game show voice.
Yeah, we should replace me with Will. That'd be perfect. He can take my spot.
No, you do the outline. Come on, man.
You do all the heavy lifting. Absolutely.
Yeah, you do all the organizational stuff. Me and Ritter, what did you say? The comedian. Was that
the comic relief?
Exactly. All right, guys. Well, hey, appreciate you guys joining us on the podcast tonight. Grant Gates signing out.
Rhit Moore signing off.
Gabriel Jagush signing off.